Yeah, it's still morning by 8 minutes. It's time for our daily lectionary reading for Wednesday, September 29th, not October. Ooh, my screen just flashed. I hope I'm still going. Today, what do we have for you? It's Psalm 140, which is our last day with Psalm 140. We're continuing Esther. Now, today's going to be a little longer than our typical weekday lectionary reading because they jump from the end of chapter 4 to the beginning of chapter 8 in Esther, so they jumped a lot of stuff. And I don't like it when they jump a lot of stuff when they're telling a narrative, because they jump good stuff sometimes. So I at least need to tell you what happened on those two chapters that we missed. If not, read those two chapters. And then Matthew 18, 6 to 9. So arrange things a little better here. Psalm 140, a prayer for deliverance from enemies. Deliver me, O Lord, from evildoers. Protect me from those who are violent, who plan evil things in their minds and stir up wars continually. They make their tongues as sharp as snakes, and under their lips is the venom of vipers. Guard me, O Lord, from the hands of the wicked. Protect me from the violent who have planned my downfall. The arrogant have hidden a trap for me, and with cords they have spread a net along the road. They have set snares for me. I say to the Lord, you are my God. Give ear, O Lord, to the voice of my supplications. O Lord, my strong deliverer, you have covered my head in the day of battle. Do not grant, O Lord, the desires of the wicked. Do not further their evil plot. Those who surround me lift up their heads. Let the mischief of their lips overwhelm them. Let burning coals fall on them. Let them be flung into pits, no more to rise. Do not let the slanderer be established in the land. Let evil speedily hunt down the violent. I know that the Lord maintains the cause of the needy and executes justice for the poor. Surely the righteous shall give thanks to your name, and the upright shall live in your presence. Sorry, something on my glasses, guys. Let's go to Esther. Now let's take a look at chapters 6 and 7, because chapter 5 ended with a quick reminder. Previously on our story, Haman had gone home, called his friends to brag about how great he was and the honor she'd gotten from the king, and Esther was inviting him back to a banquet a second day. But yet it galled him that Mordecai was at the king's gate and would not bow to him or tremble before him. And remember, Mordecai was in sackcloth and ashes because he had found out about the plot against the Jews, Haman's plot against the Jews. Well, Haman's wife says, hey, build a gallows, and in the morning tell the king to have Mordecai hanged on it, and then go to the banquet in a good mood. And that's where chapter 5 ends. Chapter 6 says the king couldn't sleep that night, so he gave orders to read some of the records, read the annals, read the history, to help him sleep. And it just so happened that what they read to him was how Mordecai had uncovered the plot against the king to have him assassinated. And the king said, has Mordecai been honored for this? And they said, no, nothing's been done. And the king's like, well, who's in the court? Now, Haman had just entered the outer court because he's going to speak to the king about having Mordecai hanged. And the servants say, Haman's out there, and the king brings him in. And the king says, the king asks Haman, what would the king wish, what should be done for somebody the king wants to honor? Now, Haman thinks it's him. And Haman says, for the man whom the king wishes to honor, let royal robes be brought, which the king has worn. So not just robes fit for royalty, but robes which had been worn by the king. And a horse that the king has ridden, and with a royal crown on his head, and let the robes and the horse be handed over to one of the king's most noble officials, and let him robe the man whom the king wishes to honor, and conduct the man on horseback through the open square of the city, proclaiming before him, thus shall it be done for the man whom the king wishes to honor. And the king says, that's really good. Go take the robe and the horse, like you said, and go to the Jew Mordecai who's sitting outside the gates. Leave out none of the stuff. Do it just the way you talked about it. So Haman had to give him the king's Mordecai the king's robes and the king's horse and the crown and parade him through the square, saying, "This is the man the king wants to honor." And of course, Haman was not happy. It says he hurried to his house mourning with his head covered. And he told his wife Zeresh and all his friends, and they said, if Mordecai, before whom your downfall has begun, is of the Jewish people, you will not prevail against him, but will surely fall before him. But while they're talking, the king's eunuchs arrive to take him to the banquet. So they go to the banquet with King Esther, and the king once again says, what is your petition? It shall be granted to you, even to half of my kingdom, it will be fulfilled. And Esther says, if I have won your favor, O king, if it pleases the king, let my life be given me. That is my petition, and the lives of my people, that is my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, to be annihilated. And if we had been sold merely as slaves, men and women, I could have held my peace, but no enemy can compensate for the damage to the king. And the king's like, who is this? Who has done this? Who has been this presumptuous? And Esther says, a foe and enemy, the wicked Haman. And Haman, the king, in his wrath, and I think this was part of a reading last week because they did things out of order. The king goes off, he storms off, he's angry, and Haman throws himself onto the couch with Esther. He's begging for his life, and the king walks in and sees him on the queen's couch and says, hang him on that. There's a scaffolding built, a gallows built, hang him. And that's where we come to today. On that day, King Ahasuerus gave to Queen Esther the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, and Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told him what he was to her, that he had raised her. And the king took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. So Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. And then Esther spoke again to the king. She fell at his feet, weeping and pleading with him to avert the evil design of Haman the Agagite and the plan that he had devised against the Jews. And the king held out the golden scepter to Esther, and Esther rose and stood before the king. Remember, every time she comes in unbidden before the king, she's putting her life on the line. But he extended the scepter. He forbore to punish her. And she rose and said before the king, if it pleases the king, and if I have won his favor, and if the thing seems right before the king, and I have his approval, let an order be written to revoke the letters devised by Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote, giving orders to destroy the Jews who are in all the provinces of the king. For how can I bear to see the calamity that is coming on my people? How can I bear to see the destruction of my kindred? And then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and to the Jew Mordecai, see, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and they have hanged him on the gallows because he plotted to lay hands on the Jews. You may write as you please with regard to the Jews in the name of the king, and seal it with a king's ring. For an edict written in the name of the king and sealed with the king's ring cannot be revoked. That's an important point. Because the previous edict had been written in the king's name and with the king's seal and the signet, they can't just say, that law is no good anymore. Right? You can't just revoke the law, because once it's law, it can't be undone. The king's secretaries were summoned at that time in the 3rd month, which is the month of Sivan, on the 23rd day, and an edict was written, according to all Mordecai commanded, to the Jews and to the satraps and the governors and the officials of the provinces from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces, to every province in its own script. Sorry, lost my place. And to everyone his own language, and to the Jews in their script and their language. He wrote letters in the name of King Ahasuerus, sealed them with the king's ring, and sent them by mounted couriers riding on fast steeds bred from the royal herd. By these letters the king allowed the Jews who were in every city to assemble and defend their lives, to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate any armed force of any people or province who might attack them with their children and women, and to plunder their goods. On a single day throughout all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, on the 13th day, on the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. A copy of the writ was to be issued as a decree in every province and published to all peoples, and the Jews were to be ready on that day to take revenge on their enemies. So the couriers, mounted on their swift royal steeds, hurried out, urged by the king's command. The decree was issued in the citadel of Susa. And then Mordecai went out from the presence of the king, wearing royal robes of blue and white, with a great golden crown and a mantle of fine linen and purple, while the city of Susa shouted and rejoiced. For the Jews there was light and gladness, joy and honor in every province and in every city, wherever the king's command and his edict came. There was gladness and joy among the Jews, a festival and a holiday. Furthermore, many of the peoples of the country professed to be Jews, because the fear of the Jews had fallen upon them. And this is the last of our days in Esther. So let me give you just the quick rundown of the end, because we're not going to touch on Esther again, at least for a while. Take a quick skim. Nope, we're done for a while. So here's the dealio. The time comes, the Jews defend themselves, they kill off their enemies. All was good. And the Feast of Purim was initiated to remember this day. The Feast of Purim is still observed to this day by Jews. So it's all that feast, that festival, all has its roots in Esther. Let's go to Matthew 18:6-9. If any of you put a stumbling block before one of these little ones, children, who believe in me, it would be better for you if a great millstone were fastened around your neck and you were drowned in the depths of the ocean. That's harsh. Woe to the world because of stumbling blocks. Occasions for stumbling are bound to come, but woe to the one by whom the stumbling block comes. If your hand or your foot causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better for you to enter life maimed or lame than to have 2 hands or 2 feet and to be thrown into the eternal fire. If your eye causes you to stumble, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life with 1 eye than to have 2 eyes and be thrown into, it says, the hell of fire. It's Gehenna. I was just having this talk with somebody this morning. In the New Testament, whenever I run across a reference to hell, I immediately go to what they call an interlinear translation. And you can actually just look it up. If you type in Matthew 18:6-9 interlinear, it'll take you where to go. And what they will do is they will have the Greek and Hebrew if it was translated into both. But you'll know what words they were using, because the vast majority of the references to hell in the New Testament are references to Gehenna, which is a physical place outside of Jerusalem. It's a valley on the edge of, on the very outskirts of Jerusalem, that was up in the Old Testament period, and really pretty close up to the time of Jesus, pretty close to it, was known for where human sacrifices were done. That was where worshipers of Moloch and Chemosh and Baal and the gods who demanded human sacrifice, particularly Chemosh and Moloch, that was where they would do it, where they would sacrifice their children or people, and they would burn them alive. And it became known as a cursed valley because of that. Now, there is a legend has it that it became the garbage pit because of that, and they would burn their garbage. There's no proof of that. That's one of those kind of urban legend kind of things, although I guess it's not urban. It's really just a legend. It's a myth that has been applied to that. But the truth of it is that's where they did human sacrifice. So it was known as being cursed. and the place of eternal fire was Gehenna, the valley of Hinnom. That's where Gehenna comes from, Hinnom, outside of Jerusalem, which was the cursed valley because of human sacrifice. So I always try to look because, and here's part of the discussion we had this morning, is modern, particularly American Christians, but Western Christianity, more of our concept of Satan and hell comes from Dante's Inferno than it does the actual Bible. So we need to be very careful that we're taking this cultural crap stuff, and not applying it to the Bible. That's a faulty hermeneutic, they call that. We're using the wrong worldview. We're trying to examine the Bible through the lens of Dante's Inferno, and that's bad. We shouldn't do that. So we always need to look at that. And I've gone off tangent and talked a lot longer than I planned on this morning. So remember, don't put anything in the way of someone else's faith and belief. Don't make it harder for someone to come to know God, to know Christ. Don't be a stumbling block. Because if you are a stumbling block, if you are making it more difficult for someone to come to know Christ, it would be better for you if a great millstone were fastened around your neck and you were drowned in the sea. We don't want that. We want to encourage people and enable people to come to know the love and grace of God, of Christ Jesus, not get in the way of that. And that's our so what for today. I'll see you guys.